Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again. Today I am joined with my friend and colleague Holly Burrow. She is going to be speaking on the panel at the DFW Growth Summit taking place February 22nd. Her panel is going to be on storytelling with big data. And thank you, Holly, for joining us. You want to give us a quick introduction?
For sure, for sure. As James mentioned, my name is Holly. I am the founder of eqALL Business Solutions, and we support entrepreneurship support organizations to further the future of entrepreneurs.
Awesome. And you support them very well too, as you know, you've done a lot of work together. So I'm glad that someone's doing the good work that you do. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So talking about storytelling with data, that's something that I will say, I'm sure you'll agree that most business people are not that great at. Even marketers like myself aren't that great at telling
Well, they
stories.
tend to run in one category or the other. They're good at data or they're good at storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. So with that in mind, right, how do you turn raw data into a compelling story that resonates with decision makers?
The most simple approach is to listen to what the decision makers are saying, either in their social media channels or in one-on-one calls with them in meetings that you're hosting. Our whole team tries to make a point when we're sitting down with the decision makers to make notes kind of off in the margins when we're having a meeting about what are they leaning into, what are they wanting to learn more about, what are the questions they're asking that we might not actually have the answer to off the cuff. So kind of assimilating a list of things that they're interested in and just by listening. And data without storytelling is just kind of random bits of information floating out there. And so if you can, through that process, figure out what the story is that that you're trying to support, that's going to get you a lot further in what you need to know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you kind of off the cuff here, do you have any particular frameworks that you like to use with that kind of stuff or any kind of like step process, anything like
Like I
that?
said, we like to take notes when we're with some sort of decision maker, and then we come back to the table and share that with the whole team, and then we set goals around those notes for anything that we're rolling out in regards to that decision making process.
Yeah, yeah,
So like let's say we're onboarding a new ESO entrepreneurship support organization. For those of you that don't know the vernacular,
yeah.
we're onboarding a new one into one of our programs. In the meeting, they might say, "We want to know how many people attend one session and then fall away." So, what's the story they're trying to tell there is longevity. And so, understanding what the goal of the organization is and what impacts they're trying to create. So, if they want to know that, if they want to know when do people fall away from our programming, we will ask them point blank, are you trying to increase the tenure that organizations are supported by you? And if the answer is yes, then that we tell the story backwards from there. So once you know what the goal is, it's a lot easier to work towards that goal. If you've figured out what that is, gotten confirmation that that is the goal you're trying to work towards, and then you build the story towards that goal as the story arch.
Okay. Very good. That's a good one. Okay. Um, it's a little hybrid there of skill and experience. I can tell. I like it.
For sure.
All right, next question here. What's one example where data-driven storytelling changed the trajectory of a business?
So I'm going to go broad and then I'll narrow the story a little bit. Is I'm just going to say 2020. And the reason for that is that when companies pivot in any way, shape, or form, it basically creates a brick wall in storytelling because it's really hard to tell a story when somebody all of a sudden takes a hard left. So it's really important when something like that happens that you understand how to tell the story because the data is going to drop. So if you're not cognizant of that moment in time when you're making a change, it becomes infinitely more difficult, not impossible, but infinitely more difficult to tell a story around it. So to the point of 2020, basically every business out there had some degree of pivot in some way, shape, or form. And during that timeline, I was hyper aware of what those stories needed to look like because people were learning how to market for the first time that had been long established businesses. People were changing their audience. I mean, it was a really unique time to be a part of that process for them.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. That was definitely a very interesting time a few years back. with COVID and all that. Okay, so what is a common mistake businesses make when trying to use data to tell a story?
They lose the story. To be the most simple thing is always the biggest mistake. I like to look at it in terms of a rainbow. Every single piece of data is like a color within the rainbow, and each one is unique and interesting of its own accord. But until you tie them together with that story, it's not a rainbow. It's just random things floating out that all may be interesting of their own accord, but you're not creating that image that you want the listener or your audience to take forward. And that's what the power of storytelling has, is you're able to sort of create that vernacular, create that discussion by telling the story through a specific lens. So you're giving them that picture of a rainbow instead of saying, here's blue, here's red, here's violet, and they're all separate. You're giving them the story that you want them to take away from the data. And that's the easiest way to be able to get the story told moving forward that tells that story of goal. So if you've been working with a partner, if you've been working on a project and you knew what the goal was, as I referenced earlier, and you worked backwards from that to be able to tell the story, that's when that can all come together. And you can say, we achieved this goal by doing one, two, three, four, five, A, B, C, D, E. And so that creates this whole picture that you can hand off to your listener, to your audience, and they take that away as opposed to the random pieces that they'll shape into whatever story they want.
Hmm. Hmm. That's good. That's real good. I mean, it's a tough, initiative to get the story right. And like you said, yeah, I think that's probably the most common mistake there is like they just lose the story completely. And it
Well, and
does turn into those
if
individual
if
colors.
you don't shape it for them, they're going to
Yeah.
make up their own story. That's
Yeah.
the hard part is it's in the gaps in between the data points that the story matters because if you don't give it to them, their brains are going to create their own storyline in between. So
Yep.
if you're not generating that and telling the story in the light that it's best told in, you may or may not get the results out of the data that you were seeking.
Yeah.
The story is really what lands the data with an audience.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're 100% correct for sure. Um, what's the most exciting trend in data storytelling right now, and why does it matter?
The most exciting thing to me personally is transparency.
Hmm.
It's that we're at kind of a unique juncture in business. Historically, transparency hasn't really been a favorite thing.
Yep.
People hide the things they don't want you to know and showcase the things that are bright and shiny.
Yeah.
And one thing that the last 5 years of life has have given us is the transparency is demanded by the audience, by the public. And so people are really leaning into that. You're learning more about organizations. Organizations are feeling more comfortable telling stories of their failure instead of just their successes.
Yep.
And I feel like that's crazy impactful just at a global
Yep.
spectrum
I agree.
because you need to understand that not everything you do is going to work. Not everything you do is going to hit the goal you meant it to hit. And that's okay because sometimes you actually learn amazing things on the process. They give you a better product at the end.
Yeah.
But I think this goal of transparency and sharing and giving those data points out to the public, we're headed in a much better trajectory of being able to collaborate because people are more willing to share.
Yeah. I love that. That's great right there. And you're right. Transparency has become huge. And to your point, exactly. There's really a lot of power and in business brand power to be had and harnessed by being transparent and kind of talking about your mistakes sometimes.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And it makes things much more relatable. Businesses, in my experience, businesses these days and where we're going are becoming, how do I want to say it? They're really trying to find a way to personalize their brands a lot more and kind of make them into people almost. That's definitely the trend. And so this is one way of doing that is hey, we make mistakes just like a human being. And I
Yes,
think
and we learn from them, and sometimes
yeah,
the product is better. Like there's been a couple of programs in our tenure that we've worked with that felt really strongly that programming happened through a specific channel or in person or whatnot, and so we roll it out that way. And oftentimes it's not what we thought it would be, because every cohort of humans is unique. And so being able to look at that data in retrospect and say, this worked and that didn't work, but what were the circumstances and can we transpose them on top of one another and create a different situation altogether? I think that gets you to a very different functionality.
yeah, no, for sure. What advice would you give to businesses that struggle to connect data insights with their audience emotionally?
Then stop trying to do it yourself. Get help. That the most simple answer, as I said before, is oftentimes the right one.
Yeah,
If that's not something that you have a natural skill set for, there are so many people, companies, etc., out in the world that that is what their specialty is.
yeah,
Go and find those resources because this is important. You do need to be able to tell your story. And if what you're doing isn't landing, if it's not resonating, then you need to find another way through that barrier. And so stop trying to beat your head against the wall and figure it out. We don't all need to know how to do all things.
yeah,
One thing that the last 25 years of internet availability has given us is this desire that we think we can do and know all things because they're just a click clack away. But in reality, there are people that specialize in things, and you should lean into them because we don't all need to know all things.
yeah. 1,000% agree with you on that one too, especially for the newer entrepreneurs or the smaller businesses for sure. I definitely echo that same sentiment. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Do you have any other final thoughts? Any little things maybe you want to leave us with, or anything in particular maybe you're looking forward to at the summit? Anything at all?
For sure. More data is always better. That's you can always figure out what to do with it once you have it, but you can never go backwards. You can't go collect things after the fact. So more data is always better whenever you have the opportunity to collect data on your users, on your audience, on your friends, anybody around you that is influencing how you make decisions, do it because you can't go backwards and get it later.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. That's a lot of gold in this one. I appreciate you very much, Holly. Thank you. If you guys enjoyed this, you'll be able to catch Holly obviously at the summit. Don't forget to grab your tickets. You can go to my website, jamessackey.marketing, and get your early bird tickets before they are sold out. So thank you again, Holly, for joining us.
Thank you.